This is my exhibition. Woo! Thank you. I'm one of these unusual specimens of being a survivor from New York 80s. And this kind of came out of it. I don't like to live in the past. I live directly in the present time. But I like to use the past to create something new, and that's what this is all about. This first painting over here, it all came actually out of a book I've been writing as illustrations, and somebody really liked it in Prague. We had an exhibition, and so I carried it further. Some of these stories are true, because it's about memory and what we can remember. Do we create our own myths as we speak about our stories? How far do they go, and how much is it true, really? So the first one I can honestly say is not true. It's Rosetta resurrecting in Times Square in New York in 1981. And I can honestly say that didn't happen. No, but this is based on a real person. She was I don't even know how the proper word to put in order, but she was a trans hooker junkie, and she OD'd so many times and came back to life that she resurrected. So I captured that in the book, and she did imagine, well, I think she did OD in Times Square, but she was a really happy person and told amazing stories that I would see in New York every day on the street, and she would tell her stories, and I still remember something from it. And this is one of the stories that I tried to capture in New York, how it was in the 1980s when Times Square was not Disneyland like it is now. It was pretty extreme. It was like a lot of porn theaters and live sex acts and that. So, but going over here, this painting is a fading memory of when I lived on 10th Street between 2nd and 1st Avenue. It's like kind of fading, but I still remember it. It's a different life, different memory, a chapter of something I experienced. Rudy Petruti of the Fuzztones, who lived 2 blocks further, more in the danger zone of that period of time. He lived between A and B, which is something that I was a little nervous about going. But between 2nd and 1st Avenue, I accepted, but it was still very extreme. There were a lot of drug dealers in the block. They didn't deal heroin or anything, but because they had some ethics. The further east you went, the less ethics and the less, your life was at risk when you went further down. Because at that time, believe it or not, New York was bankrupt. It looked like bombs dropped on some buildings, and that's where all the junkies went to get their stuff. And also there were a lot of dangerous people at that time. Crime was happening, but at the same time in New York, when I moved there, you could still do your dreams, whatever they were, and make them a reality because you didn't have to work all the time to pay your rent. My first rent was $125, and I was able to develop my creativity as many people at that time, but we still had to watch our backs. The poem here is by a New York poet named Puma Pearl, who also lived on 10th Street, and it's her memory for that period of time moving around in the Lower East Side. The people in front of the building, as I said, were drug dealers, and I first moved in to 217 East 10th Street, and it was easy to get in there, but after 3 days, my apartment was robbed. I had footprints on my bed, which is very not a nice feeling, I'll say. But after that, it was like the initiation. I was accepted, and they watched after me, and they opened the door for me, and they called me Bo. I don't know why Bo. It wasn't Bro, but it was Bo. I think somebody called me Bob, and they noticed that I didn't like it, so they called me Bo. Okay, going to the second one, which is Rosetta again, which is based on real people, but a lot of imagination. And this is her appearing in this one flat way down in Alphabet City that was owned by this one Australian not film director, but theater director. And he had a disease called lupus, and he was really much, very much in pain. So he became a junkie as a result. But to make money to support his habit, he would go out and get heroin for people. So a lot of these junkies were waiting in the room. So Rosetta appeared with her red cha-cha heels, which were like something she was very proud of because it's like a Puerto Rican dancing shoes. And she was doing a performance because the junkies were impatient. And somebody was filming her that lived there. Tim was a filmmaker, and she was talking about how she killed Dorothy to get the red slippers from Wizard of Oz, and conjured the spirit of William Burroughs, and read from Naked Lunch, and distracted the junkies. Anyway, okay. And this is kind of like, oops, I did it again because I walked down the wrong street. These were guys that had baseball bats that were famous in Alphabet City. I did meet them. I survived, that's why I'm talking now. And I gave them what money I had, and I told them that I was reminded of the film The Warriors, and it was so cool that they looked like them when they let me go. But another time, I had a knife to my throat down the wrong street, and he went through my pockets. I had nothing in my pockets. And he gave me a dollar bill and said, "Get out of here." Really? That, I remember, it's a true story. Okay, over here. Okay. This, well, it's not very clear, but these are go-go girls at a place called, what was it called? A Baby Doll Lounge. And they were artists in their own right. They were topless dancers, but they were artists in their own right because they used to make their own mixtapes and dance to them. And they would only have New York bands because all their boyfriends were in the bands. And so they would do that. And that would be our first stop before going to Tier 3 where bands played, and then the Mud Club, which was very popular at that time. It was like the anti-Studio 54 uptown with playing disco. This was like more for the underground scene downtown. And I did work there, but I'll get to that in the end. But it was also similar lines to get in for people who were accepted, and there were first floor were bands and DJs, second floor art gallery and performance, and top floor was underground VIPs. And this is traditional Halloween parade on 6th Avenue in the West Village, which is something I put in this because I loved Halloween since I was a kid. And it was always romantic to me in New York because it just was. I don't have too much to say to this, but I remember, well, it was pre-AIDS, and you never knew who you'd go home with. And one night on Halloween, I went home with the bride, Frankenstein, and I still remember that. That was the one Halloween that I remember. And I still do remember that. And this is Linda. We used to go there. It was Dave's Luncheonette. We'd go there after the Mud Club at 4 or 5 in the morning. She was an anorexic waitress. I don't know what age she was, 40, 50, whatever. She had this beehive hairdo, and she would like pour people cups of coffee. Because it was like the bottomless coffee. You could drink as much coffee as you wanted. And she'd always have a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. Always. I mean, she was hardcore. But the one thing, when people got a little too loud, she would say, "Pipe down." Always. And people got quiet, and then they started up and laughed again. So one night, this one guy was complaining about the coffee tasting really bad, like an ashtray or a cigarette or something. And then when he finished it, he screamed. He went up to her and pointed the coffee, and it was like a cigarette, but probably Linda's. And he made a big deal about it, and then she just said, sit down. She went in the back of where she got the coffee, got a new cup, put it down in front of him, poured a cup of coffee, fresh, and she said, pipe down. It was the only time I ever saw her smile. The only time. Okay. And nuns in the box, I don't know what to say about that. It was inspired by Tish and Snooki, which is over there, that they used to dress as nuns in a punk band called the Sick Pups. Okay, this originally is from Club 57, and it's a pity that I don't have more from them because it was a big influence. It was around the corner from where I lived. It was like a creative laboratory. And many people that came out of there, like Basquiat, Keith Haring, many people. But there was no competition. All these people, kind of like a magnet, were attracted to this place. It was a basement in a Polish church. And amazing things would happen there, like one night a film being played, another a band playing, another theme night of something or other. And this was a particular theme night of country and western, where we danced, we danced around like country and western people, and dressed as country and western, had hootenanny and got down. But they had many amazing things. And many years later, in 2017, there was a huge exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York to celebrate this club. So for like a small club, it was a big deal. This is from a club called Area. It was really unique at that time. That opened in 1982 or 1983, and I helped build it. And one of the unique things about it is every 3 months they would have a new theme. They would renovate it according to that theme. And it was really amazing and incredible place. It lasted 4 years maybe. Artists were running it, and I helped build it, but in the first theme was night. And it was one of the most unusual jobs that I have ever had. It was like when you walk in, it was like a museum where there's like glass windows and things were behind them created by artists or live performers. So for the first theme, I was behind the window. There was a little boy's room with a bed and posters on the wall and whatnot. And I would go there every night, put on pajamas, put on a sleeping mask, and get in bed, and I would get paid to sleep every night from 10 p.m. to 5 in the morning. I got a good salary for sleeping.
I can testify to all of this.
What? You were there, no?
I was there, yeah.
If anybody wants to, I should have said it from the beginning.
Totally amazing, like, there'd be people like building like little model airplanes or
We're at Area, no?
And they every month was like a whole nother environment that was unbelievable, and it's so outstanding and outrageous, but fantastic. I didn't know you were really part of that construction.
I was.
It was.
I was even like in a coffin at the another Halloween night where Grace Jones poked me, and I woke up and she screamed.
Thank you.
I can add
reminding
more
me of this.
What?
Thank you for reminding me of all this.
But if anybody wants to interact or ask questions, please do. I'm just blabbing and whatnot because, that's what I promised to do.
I did my part.
Yes, you did your part. Thank you, Skipper. Skipper. If anybody else wants to say something or make a comment or whatever, please do it. I'll ask you to do it when I'm done talking, but please say something if you feel whatever. If you feel it, say something or ask a question spontaneous. Anybody? So far, this is almost half. Little more. Not that. Okay. Over here is a rooftop on 55 Christie Street that Tom Scully used to throw a party several times a month to pay his rent, basically. It was in Chinatown, and the nice thing is you could see the panorama of New York, the buildings. It was beautiful, but it was a tar roof with no protection around it, and it was fucking dangerous, really dangerous. And I was always scared because they had bands playing up there and films, people jumping around. I thought it would collapse, but it never did. One person fell off, but supposedly they survived. From what I heard, but I didn't know, I only heard that secondhand, but I did, it was like 12 floors up in Chinatown. I did have a friend who got very, very drunk. It was an old elevator where there was a gate, and you had to open the gate, and he stepped in, there was no elevator. And he fell down all the way, broke every practical bone in his body, and the doctor said the only reason he survived was because he was so drunk. Keep that in mind. Yeah, keep that in mind. And now he's in California, he's a carpenter, and he runs every day. So, happy end. Yes, Skipper.
Can I add to your Club 57 story?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, this was a venue that was just the most creative people with the most inventive imagination.
And Magnuson, John Sess.
That's what
Keith Haring.
Keith Haring.
Kenny Sharp.
The whole Klaus Nomi,
Klaus
Joey
Nomi.
Arias,
Joey Arias.
everybody.
Wow.
These are legends.
Yeah.
I mean, and Magnuson, she's like, where she is now. So
Yeah,
it was like,
she's still going.
and she still got the attitude. So
Yeah, and she still got the
yeah. It was really
But she lives in Los
important.
Angeles.
I know. Yeah. It's on fire now.
Yeah, it's on fire. That's the other thing. Things have changed.
I just
Yeah,
wanna make that
but I like
point.
your comments. Okay, where are we? Okay, once again, I wish Rudy was here because, he was involved in this. But I worked at a club called The Cavern in 1981. I was a bartender. I was in the basement. I had this little cubbyhole that they called the confessional booth because unfortunately people confessed everything to me when they were very drunk. And I heard some stories I probably shouldn't have heard, but I'm still here, so I survived. But I talked to all sorts of people, mafia people and so on, and I stopped them at some different points. Anyway, in that particular night, psychedelic weekend, and a lot of bands played, these bands, Funstones and whatnot, that was Rudy that was part of. But they gave me this large punch bowl. I didn't know what was happening at first, to be honest. And they said, anybody that brings a bell, give them a punch for free. So people did, and I found out that this punch had LSD in it. So I didn't drink any because, I had to bartend. Anyway, but Rudy drank some, and he forgot to get paid, and Tom Scully, who put it on, went home with some go-go dancers that were painted in blue, and he woke up the next day painted in blue, and it was just one of those nights. Okay. Ask questions if you want. This is Tish and Snooky, who are the nuns in the box over there. They had a famous place called Manic Panic, which was the first punk store in New York City on St. Mark's Place, which is kind of A Street, between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. And they sold clothes and things, but they're still selling hair coloring online, and they're doing quite well. But as I said earlier, they used to dress as nuns and play in a punk band called the Sick Bucks, and I took a very nice photograph of them in a disgusting toilet in CBGB's. Dressed as nuns. Okay. I think, is that it? Oh shit. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna have to point from this moment on. This is a Iggy Pop. I guess you've heard of it. It's based on a true story, not me, but a friend of mine had this girlfriend, Big Liz, who was an Amazon go-go dancer at Iggy Pop. And he came home early one day and found her in bed with some guy. And then he opened the door and she started screaming, and the man jumped out of the bed. He recognized him as Iggy Pop, and he froze because he didn't know what to do because the guy had such a huge cock, and he really froze. And then, well, the only thing that's not true is I write here that Iggy popped him and he dropped, but actually Big Liz punched him really good, and he got out. That was the end of the relationship, but He had a good story, and I got something to quote. Anyway, the other one is a painting of me in the bathtub in the kitchen at 217 East 10th Street, because in the tenement flats in New York City, they always had the bathtubs in the kitchen because it was the warmest room in the flat. And so it's just me reading Slaves of New York some night, but I reconstructed it and created a shower out of it so I can take a shower. And the last one is me bartending at the Mud Club, because I used to work at the Mud Club for several years. I used to produce things there, and then went out to bartending, and Steve Mass, the owner, had me doing many, many other things. When a DJ didn't show up, I would do their, I would DJ, which was fun. I would get drunk for free and play the music and have a good time. I was always nervous to, there was 2 turntables, and I was afraid that I missed from one to the other, but I always managed somehow, some way. And then he had me do security, which was a really bad idea, because I was not a typical security guy, and I got a good punch one night and ended in the hospital, so that was the end of that. And he was very guilty, so I played in that guilt and got, better work. But the point of it being, I mean, some people are haunted by their memories, and I say, let it go. But yeah, I mean, memories are what are part of who we are, and the important thing is that we make use of it before they fade, and we remember the best that we can and make something out of it, hopefully. And the way I do it is through my creativity, and I live in the present time because I have to move ahead. And a group of people, Object Paradise is here tonight, who I believe in the future, they give me hope, because the period of time, like today, I don't know if you know, but today is Donald Trump's birthday. You should celebrate, huh?
That's why I choose this day.
That's why I chose this day.
And
to celebrate. This is our celebration.
250 years of US Army as well.
Yeah, then he's having an army parade as we speak, or as I speak, or as we speak, or whatever.
The evil weekend.
What's that?
Evil weekend.
Evil weekend, but what's that Italian quote? The old world is dead, and it's the time of the monsters, but okay. But I have hope. Object Paradise is part of that, and I'm looking forward to the future. I mean, because fuck it, we have to keep going. We will fight against it, and we will win. Gabby's poem is here, and it stretches. Whoa. I mean, this poem killed me. I thought it was going to be a short poem, but a long poem, and we wrote it. It's the first poem that really destroyed me, but it's brilliant and wonderful, and I'd like to talk to her about it. But first, are there any questions?